could take that same amount of time and start expanding your knowledge in that, because I want to get these results and I want to learn more, but I don't want to be in the gym all day.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Rest, Eat, Move podcast. It's the duo back in the studio. We're going to continue on our conversation around kind of this journey from good to great. You heard a couple interviews over the last couple weeks. For the next couple weeks, we're just going to do in-house, in-studio, try to give you some of these action items. A couple reminder, if you're following along on this journey, each week I come out with a blog. I post it on LinkedIn or on our website on targetliving.com. Might be a cool thing to kind of see it in writing. I try to post some videos inside that as well. And I think the VO interview is very interesting with David and what he's trying to do, and along the way, how I'm documenting some of those things. So we're just going to build on that. If you did read the blog, or if you didn't, I talk about the first month after I got the tests and kind of focused and created this journey. September was really just getting the routines back. You know, I do have a real life. I do have kids. I have things I have to behavior change. And so September was kind of reinvigorating, getting some of those foundations solidified. I talk about October, November, December, even maybe January is really about activation and focus. Now you got Halloween and you got Thanksgiving and Christmas. Probably the last couple weeks of December will be more maintaining, but at some point you have to put the gas down. You can maintain and you can do all the things, you can check the box, but you got to put in a little bit more effort than before. And so where I'm at today, I'm at about 194, 193, give or take, each day. And I talk about one of my goals at the end of October is to be 190. I'd like to be able to do 20 pull-ups. I really haven't even measured that, so I don't even know where my baseline is, but I'm throwing out some of these goals, some of these stretch goals. And so in October, and as you're listening to this, it's going to be mid-October, it's time that we create some activation and some focus. And so today we're going to talk about my exercise routine, how to think about your exercise routine and how to create more focus. We're going to talk about periodization. We'll talk about Fibonacci numbers. And we'll talk about the real stuff, because some days you feel like working out, Dad, and some days you don't. And that's not just you listening, that's us too. So did you feel like working out today?
I did. Yeah. I like to move every day. So, but some days I don't. You know, it's not that intense, but I'm moving.
Are you pushing heavy weight?
Some days not. But today I do a 3-day strength routine. I did it at my house, and then playing pickleball later this afternoon. So kind of sneaking some of that in there, but that's more fun and play. So, but yeah, I liked your podcast with David. With VO, I thought the podcast when was it Orvo?
Revo, yeah.
Revo on the testing, I think that's really kind of eye-opening. I was in Fort Lauderdale a couple days ago speaking for a company called Kovac, and we did a presentation called Your Health Keeps Score, and everybody's asking the same questions you and David discussed about testing and medical illiteracy, and that's the whole presentation was about. And it was kind of eye-opening because, as you mentioned in the VO, is, you know, financial services, a lot of people don't really understand finance, and the same goes with health. So those are the two things we're not taught. But it was really eye-opening for me how interested people are on some of this area they don't know much about, but they're interested. So that's kind of moving. But no, I thought those were good podcasts.
So there's curiosity. So the reason for today and the reason for documenting this journey is there's so many different ways to get to the same outcome, and you can't control the outcome. You can only control the process, but there is, I think, a more streamlined way. There's a way to prioritize it. There's a way to make it more efficient, and that's what we're going to talk about. And so when you think about exercise, I think most people, if they got bad blood tests or they're working at their weight, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to put the gas down in weight training. Is there ever a reason why that's not really where you should start?
It's never where you should start.
I set him up for that.
So that was a question we had. A lot of people, I'm just not working out. I need to work out. Well, wait a minute. Let's just step back and say, how do we slowly put the toe in the water and build a routine that you can repeat, not just do for, 3 weeks or whatever. So that's the big mistake, I think. I used to interview people in personal training and how often you're exercising. I'm not. Okay. How often you want to exercise? I want to exercise every day. Okay. So you want to go from nothing to some, 7 days a week. So you have to really step back and say, okay, how is this going to fit my lifestyle? And one of the things I always talk about, number one, is place and time. Where are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And that's how we begin. Because if you don't schedule it, you're probably not going to do it. And if you don't have a place to do it, the list goes on. So place and time is where I begin with everybody. And then from there, we break down into goals and what's real and what season of your life and how you can fit it in.
What's a mistake if you are already exercising and you have a place and a time to just go like a mad person too hard?
When you think about periodization, the reason athletes understand, like if you have a specific date to run a marathon or Olympic, you're competing in the Olympics or, Major League Baseball or whatever, you want to be trending at your peak. And if you try to kind of get to the peak every single day, the body's going to wear out and crash. And so that's why it's really periodization is there's a period to train hard and there's a period to rest and recover. And that's why you're seeing in Major League Baseball, they have pitch counts. You see this now in spring training and you see it in professional football and basketball, men and women both. But that's where they make a mistake. There's no change in how they do their movements or it's the same 10 reps, 3 sets, push as much weight as I can or whatever it is. Or I'm on the treadmill and I just run hard and, there's no...
When does that really start to show up that it's not working anymore? So if I was 20 years old doing 3 sets, 10 reps, running on my treadmill, I'm probably going to look pretty fit. When does that stop?
Well, you have this training specificity. And so if you're trying to train for, let's just say golf or whatever, you have to train specifically for that sport. And then the other way is you can also have more of a universal type, exercise plan that kind of covers lots of ground. So the first thing is place and time. Number 2 is we got to find activities people enjoy. If they hate getting on the step mill or they hate running on the treadmill or whatever they don't like doing, I'm not saying you need to, always be comfortable, but you have to kind of acclimate. What do you like? I like to dance. Okay, let's talk about that. I like to swim. But I think the big mistake a lot of people make is they do the same thing over and over, and then they start getting injured, and they start losing motivation. They lose the lust. It's boring.
And if they don't get injured in a faster route and they get used to it, let's just say 15 plus years, I'm on this treadmill, treadmill number 2 at 7:30 every morning. We've all been at a gym where you've seen that type of behavior.
They're just burning calories,
what kind of blind spots are created at that moment?
Well,
because there's some people that we've seen doing the same thing repetitive, and they don't get injured.
They just want to phone it in, and I'm moving my body, and there's real benefits of that. A lot of it's just to the mind, but if they're really trying to make some improvement,
but if they're trying to be better, why should you expect?
I think people love growth,
physiologically and mentally. Why is it good to always make sure that bubble's staying expanded?
Well, again, you create the range of what you want to be doing. And so again, our range is shrinking for everybody as we age. My range is definitely shrinking, but the goal is I'm trying to hold on to a range that I not only feel good, but I can do things. If I want to ski with your kids or, do whatever. I mean, we just moved. I can move furniture. Your mom thinks I still am 25, but I can still move stuff. And so again, that's what I think more and more people, but more than that, it makes it interesting. It makes it more exciting. I remember my dad, your grandpa, would always go, God, strength training is the most boring thing ever. And, for many people it is boring, but also if you understand a little bit more, it's like a Rubik's Cube. You can constantly change now the movements, the speed, the amplitude, the list goes on. So it makes it very interesting the more you know about it. It's like golf, this. I can hit cut shots, hook shots, punch shots. I mean, it's endless. So
again, it does come down to the individual, where they're at. Are they at 0 days? Are they already working out? Place and time, training specificity, or universal? But really what we're talking about today is really try to expand that range. So over my journey, over the last, 39 years, because it's not just the last couple of years, it's the whole journey, my bubble has been shrinking. And so it's not just like, well, I don't eat as clean or not sleeping as much and I got the stress of the family or whatever, but the routine of the exercise became more in the bubble. I tend to have a little bit of variety because this is what I do, but it's everybody's bubble shrinks. And so to me, what we're talking about today is I move into October, my goal or my focus is to create more activation, more intensity, more effort. Doesn't always mean redlining. We'll get into that in a second. But really, I gotta push that gas pedal down, and there's a way to do it that we think is really strategic and creates.
Well, the other thing too, that's what periodization is about. You don't always want to be, jumping to the top of the mountain all the time. And so now you're kind of excited. You're excited to add some new variety, and maybe you can get to that 5:30 mile and your 20 pull-ups, whatever. But whatever those goals are, I mean, this is why I do basically an 89-day thing. And I don't hit these things, but at least gives me something to pay attention to, be a little more focused. And that's what you're doing right now. You're a lot more intentional about how you're moving and eating, and the list goes on.
Yeah, and when I think about my exercise routine, there's areas that on paper I may be better than I ever have been, and then there's areas that I'm worse than I ever have been. And I think about you, just knowing you, I would say your flexibility is probably better than it ever has been, but there's also limitations.
Sure.
More than it ever has been. So you look at both sides of those things. Again, my main thing right now is now we have to kind of juice it up. You got to put in a little extra effort, and I think about you get used to what you're used to. So I'm used to carrying around 195 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I'm working out, maybe even the same intensity I did 5 years ago at 175, I'm going to have to increase my intensity to get back to that.
Well, the other thing too, you've seen this before, but you can never out exercise a bad diet. And so the first thing for a lot of people, they start seeing lots of changes if they haven't been a mover. But if they're been a mover, they're not going to see a whole lot of changes through exercise. What they're going to start seeing changes is how they eat. And then when they put the two together, now we got Jack LaLanne used to always say that, exercise is king and nutrition is queen. I would disagree with Jack on that because, again, I've seen that. When I'm bodybuilding, I can eat perfect for the first 5 weeks. I'm already training. I've been training hard, but nothing is really changing. And all of a sudden, week 5 kicks in and week 6, and now you're seeing transformations like never before. So the exercise, once you said it earlier, when you build a process, I don't really give up that process. Now, the nutrition piece has to be tighter here and there, and then again, you're now being more intentional about the process of how you move. And that's a whole nother thing. So you want to get the baseline to begin with. And then as time goes on, now we get a little more specific.
All right. So let's talk about real life. So I think this is pretty common for most people that are exercising. If you're listening and you're not exercising, it's kind of, okay, we got to go a couple steps further. But let's just say I go to an exercise class 3 days a week, or I work with a trainer a couple days a week, or I go through my exercise routine. I go to the gym 3 to 4 days a week. What I believe happens for everybody is we're humans and we want it to be more efficient, less thinking, and you get used to what you're used to. So for me, what that looks like is I continue to do a split routine. So that doesn't necessarily go away, but I tend to stick to more of like 3 sets, 10 reps, something that I just...
Yeah, you can do it in your sleep.
There's no focus to it.
Yep.
And then, maybe I plan to do 2 to 3 different exercise per body part and do some type of cardio, some type of stretching. But there's the things that I'm comfortable doing, can do in my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to a podcast or music and I don't really have to. It's autopilot because I have that routine. Like you said, I think a great point is if you're not exercising, you start exercising, you're going to see some huge changes. For me, where I have been exercising, I'm not going to see a ton of changes, even with this intensity, without the extra and the nutrition piece. But the area to me that I've really felt different about is really paying attention to my body. So it's easy for me. Okay, I like to run. I know how to warm up to run, but I'm basing my running on that day based on how I feel after I've warmed up. So some days for some reason, my calves feel tight. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's probably aging, but these are the areas that I see as I observe that people don't go inward. And I was listening to an interesting podcast about all our stimulation is external. So we're so, and this gentleman was talking about our experiences. And when we describe experiences, we describe external stimulation. But the truth is, it's our internal reality that makes an experience great or not great. Yet we think it's, if I go to Malibu or Maui or wherever, that's a great experience. It's how you look at it. And so I think about that in exercise a lot, or grandpa or whoever, is I'm really trying to go inward in that exercise. And it allows me on that day, instead of saying today I have a framework, but today I'm going to run a fast mile. I actually allow my body to tell me, is today the day that I'm going to run a fast mile? And then I'll get into the periodization. So that's kind of where I've been paying attention to a little bit more. And it guides me because I already have the structure. And I see a lot of people already have a lot of structure. You know how to use elliptical, you know how to run, you know how to bike, but listening to the body to let it kind
well,
of
I
guide
think that word right there is you're aware of pivoting, because at that point in time, I just don't have it today. But you know what? Today, we used to do this a lot of the financial services. I'd say, some of you are really type A personalities. You don't need to have Orange Theory and have your heart rate off the charts. You need more relaxation. You need more restorative stretching and movement, and maybe that's what you want to do today.
Sure.
So the days that I don't really feel that energized to put the pedal down, I'm going to do movement, but it's going to be a lot easier. I'm just going to do more stretching, more passive stuff, maybe the mini trampoline. I just mix it up. But then other days, like you feel like I'm kind of into it. I'm going after it a little bit. So that's where you have, I think, the experienced exerciser can pivot, and then it makes it more enjoyable for that day versus, okay, today I don't really quite feel it and I'm trying to kill myself. And that doesn't always work.
Yeah, and as us we're pro personal trainer and pro coach and pro someone to guide you. I think sometimes the mistake is, though, you don't learn how to pivot. You don't learn how to, do it on your own. And we all know people that will not do it without that. They might say it's the accountability. It's really the ability to go inward.
And that's, you talk a lot about intrinsic motivation. So I used to do that with my clients sometimes. I'd sit down with them and say, hey, how do you feel today? I mean, 1 to 10 scale. Are you a 6? I'm kind of tired, didn't sleep well last night. Probably not the day to try to kill them.
Or you just watch them.
Or just, you watch them.
Observe them.
Correct.
So it's like, when we talk about exercise, maybe today you thought, okay, we're going to talk about bench press and deadlifts and the actual stuff. I think the activation and focus that I've really created on top of the periodization, which we'll get into next, is I go into my routine. I create a place and a time. I plan that. I don't just allow that to be dictated, because then it will never happen. And then I show up there with a very inward curiosity of how is the body, how's the mind. And some days when the mind's wants to kind of not do anything, that's probably the days that I actually do the most intensity. And it's, it's just the way that it works. And some days I go in there with the intention of doing all these different things, and I get on a mat and I start warming up my back, and I spend the next 45 minutes just doing restorative movements. And that to me is not taught. We're not teaching that, because that's the art of movement. But whether I have my 4th grade tackle football kids, or you got these peak athletes, I think we only are thinking through, like, how do we get bigger, faster, stronger? When in reality, sometimes, how do I take these people that look like they're fatigued or kind of tired and allow them to restore their body? And that's what, I'm trying to do that for myself.
And a big part of that is your nervous system. When you're working out with yourself or whoever, that's why I like to throw balance poses in there, because it kind of gets them their attention right away. Like, if you're always, nothing wrong with listening to music or podcasts when you're working out, but sometimes you want to, what's my body feel when I'm doing the movement? Or how is my body reacting? Or what's my breath like? I mean, when you start paying attention to these things like that, the internal stuff, then it becomes very interesting of how I'm reacting that day. And a big part of that is just being more engaged in the movement you're doing, which again, now that kind of helps wash the brain.
Well, and I think, you've talked about Todd and some of your past trainers and some of the things you learned from him, like the posture and body alignment. And I remember the first time you were teaching me, over the years, it took forever, but we would talk about, is your navel engaged? Are you
Right.
breathing? Is your chest up? Are you pulling your shoulder blades? And so
Right.
those subtleties, to me, are the missing glue.
Well, Todd Yale, one of the better trainers I've ever been around, but he came up with the 4 F's of strength training: focus, form, feel, fatigue. And if you really, in your workout, thought about those 4 F's of strength training, that's really, I mean, how many people really do that? So you're just in there, you're doing your stuff, just doing the movement. There's none of that. There's how much weight can I push? How many reps am I doing? Versus that trumps everything. I'm gonna get into the focus, the form, the feel, fatigue. If I'm fatiguing, I'm probably losing my form. I'm not so focused on just the weight anymore. So that's a whole nother art of getting involved in your movement pattern, which now makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I haven't heard you say that before. That's exactly what we're doing. So like you go see Walt, and Walt's first thing you're doing with Walt is you're going to get on the all fours and you're going to warm up your wrists. You're going to go this way, clockwise, counterclockwise, reverse. And I've taken some really peak athletes and just done one arm reverse, and you would think that their wrist is going to fall off. It's that lack of introspection,
right,
that I believe, miss as we get too specific, or we get too focused, or it's all about intensity or how much weight. You're strapping your knees, you're wrapping your arms. There's a time and place for both spectrums, but I think we're not doing
but that to me now it gets into more. This gets more and more interesting. The more you don't know, the more you don't know. Like doing that right away, that's creating grounding. That's a whole nother thing. So when you think about the mind, people talk about grounding, going outside in your bare feet in grass. Well, you're doing that right now. Closed chain exercise. You're doing a closed chain exercise for your wrists and your elbows and your shoulders. That's a great way to heal the body. So again, there's a lot to it versus just getting on a machine or run through a workout. But people have to be curious. And if they're not, let's build a foundation first, and then we can start going a little bit deeper.
All right, so let's talk about periodization. You have an 89-day training plan that people can download. It's on our website. If you can't find it, we'll send it to you if you reach out to us. But there's a reason why the numbers are 89. Let's start with the Fibonacci numbers and how you use Fibonacci for training, how I use Fibonacci for training.
Well, Matthew Cross, a gentleman, Dr. Phil Nurnberger, if you've listened to our podcast before, but Matthew Cross turned me onto the Fibonacci numbers probably 20 years ago. And he knew I was into bodybuilding, and I never heard of him before. And Leonardo Fibonacci was, way back in the days, long time ago. I'd have to go back to the actual date. But if you look at nature, everything's based on Fibonacci numbers. If you looked at Michelangelo, the statue of David, he used the Fibonacci numbers to build it.
Golden ratio.
So again, the big part of that is understanding everything in nature. Starfish is 5, spiders 8. These are Fibonacci numbers. So when I started talking to him more, he said, have you ever thought about using the Fibonacci numbers for your competing for training? So you work backwards. Whenever your event is, let's say it's on this date, you work back 89 days, and that's how you begin. And then where we're coming with this is that I never planned in recovery. So back to periodization, he helped me plug in using the Fibonacci numbers where I would plug in rest days. And before I'm like, oh, I gotta work hard today. And reality is, no, today's a rest day or an active rest day. And then my last 5 bodybuilding contests, I felt like $1 million. I wasn't overtraining. I felt fantastic. And so I use these Fibonacci numbers on a regular basis, and I don't teach it that much to my clients because it's kind of, are they really interested in doing they got to be training regularly for that, but it's definitely a tool if you're working on somebody that has a specific goal in mind, like you're running. Like if you're saying, hey, I want to do a 5:30 mile,
But
we'd be
it's
doing
also,
Fibonacci
it's
numbers.
also something to focus on. So if
Absolutely.
you wanted to do 8 reps and 12 reps and 15 reps, no problem with that. So let's break this down. So Fibonacci numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. So really what you're doing is you're taking the number before, adding it to the next number.
Correct.
And it creates the next number. So 1 plus 1 equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5.
Yeah,
5
those
plus
are all
3.
Fibonacci numbers.
So the numbers really we get use the most are 5, 8, and 13, and we'll explain that in a second. So 21-day challenge, Fibonacci number, 89-day plan, Fibonacci number. And sometimes you don't need to lose your mind. But
yeah, so for a lot of my clients, I like to have them change the routine once a month.
Yeah.
It's easy for them. But if they want to go to the next level, we're going to change it following the Fibonacci numbers. So at day 21, we're moving from,
or you could do day 34.
Or day 34. So all those days, those 21, 34, 55, those are all big dates of where I'm flipping the switch on my training.
All right. So before everyone thinks we've lost the mind. But anyway, Google Fibonacci. But we take this even more practical, and it makes some sense here. So when you think about a strength training routine, you talked about Todd's four
F's strength
But
training.
we also talk about the 3 R's, rate, range, and resistance. And the area most people change or think about is resistance. Rate is a different way to do it, and range is a different way to do it. But when you're thinking about periodization of not just plateauing, we might want to do more power, more strength, more endurance. And so
yeah, and Walt, turned me on to this a long time. So if you think about the rate, and so the rate, the range,
resistance,
and the resistance, the first thing you want to do is you're working on your range. Like if I'm doing a squat, I'm not doing, we used to go over in Hazlitt and watch them in the football, and they'd do a squat and they'd have all this weight on them and they'd move 3 inches. Well, what's that going to do for them? Well, I can squat 500 pounds. No, you can't. You
get your name on the wall.
Yeah. So range is where you usually start. I start with most people. What does the range look like? And then from there, we look at the rate, and that's how fast, slow, in between. So now it gets to be
isometric.
It gets very exciting.
Eccentric, concentric.
And then I go into the resistance, and you can see resistance is number 3 of the R's. So if I don't have good range and I'm changing my rate, the resistance kind of takes care of itself. So when I have somebody, and you do the same thing, but let's just say we're doing a dumbbell chest press, today we're going to do a full range, 90 degrees, all the way up, but we're going to do a rate of a 2-second down and maybe a 1 second up, a little bit more speed coming up. That's going to affect the resistance. So anyway, now we start getting into those, and then we go into the, 3 sets of 13, 4 sets of 8, 5 sets of 5. And that's how I change per month for many people, the resistance so you kind of move those things together. It's like fluid.
So the idea of this in periodization of strength training is instead of just doing a cartwheel one day and a box jump the next day and then running on a treadmill the next day and changing your workout every time, which is going to require a couple different things. It's going to require effort, attention, inefficiencies, but it becomes entertainment at some point.
And that's what we've all seen forever. It's like, okay, my trainer loves to mix it up. Well, your nervous system's never really adapted, so you're not really mixing it up. I'm not going to mix up your golf swing. I'm going to have you, work on your grip and your this and that. So it's no different. So I want people to get down. I want to get their form down perfect, their technique down perfect, and then we can start adding new things along the way.
And you have variety in the cardio,
absolutely,
and the stretching.
Yes.
And you can do different movements.
Yes.
Some days you can do body weight, you can do dumbbells.
They're just movements. They're just movements.
Yeah, but instead of a lot of like the plyometrics and jumping and skipping, and which tends to be more demand, but you're also not going to just do 3 sets by 10 every single week.
Well, I had an exercise yesterday with a group when we were in Fort Lauderdale, and we did calisthenics in the morning, and I showed them 5 different movements. And I said, you could perfect them versus just getting on a treadmill and walking and whatever, because it's working your feet and your balance and mobility and on and on and on. But instead of giving you 50 of them, I'm just going to give you 5, and you keep repeating them and get better at amplitude or range. You start improving the ballistic of how you're doing it. So I think that's what's missing out there is like, I'm just doing entertainment or I'm just doing the same thing every day.
So let's just say month one, I tend to do 3 by 13 first. Is that what you start with?
I start with that.
Yeah. So for the first month, let's make it easy, or 21 days or 34, however you want to look at it. If you want to follow the 89-day plan. But so for me, October, I'm doing 3 sets, 13 reps. That's going to dictate resistance, but I also am working on range.
You can mix that in.
You can change the rate. So if we're going to do a dumbbell chest fly, I'm going to use a weight that I can do 13 reps on that third set.
With perfect form.
Yeah, so each time that I do a different set, I tend to increase the weight, but I'm doing it, I'm picking my weight. Yeah, I'm picking my weight because I'm doing a little bit more repetition.
And the other thing, too, is really not negotiable, but we do some dynamic warm-up, restorative movements. So that's always in place before we begin.
And I tend to do dynamic warm-up, foundation stuff. Then I do cardio. I think sometimes you do cardio, then dynamic warm-up. It's however.
No, I do that first. I do what you just said.
And some people like to strength train before cardio. Let's not get that twisted. I tend to like cardio. I like to get my.
Well, again, I'd make the claim is you want to get your nervous system. So if I'm doing any type of running or calisthenics, I'm doing that when my nervous system is fresh, not when I'm tired. If I did want to go and do some no-brain walking on the treadmill or elliptical or whatever, I can do that anytime. There's no nervous system adaptation. But to me, I call that junk time. I mean, it's okay to build that baseline. I think that's fine. But to me, that's not really what I'm after. I'm after more of the other stuff that allows me to move more.
So that's going to be month 1, and it's going to allow me to do more endurance. I tend to, in this state, I'm going to tend to be maybe at a heavier weight. So I'm trying to really lean up a little bit, get the body moving.
But you're doing 13 reps.
13 reps.
3 sets, 13 reps.
And so then the next...
you would say, let's just say you do chest and back, you're probably picking 3 chest movements, 3 back movements, maybe some core.
Yeah.
So you might have, 9, 10 different.
It's usually about 30 to 45 minutes of
not that long.
Yeah.
So to me, like today, I did chest and back, and I did core. I did my lower back on a Swiss ball, and I'm doing 4 sets of 8. It took me probably 45 minutes total, including the stretching and all the stuff that comes with it. And today I did mini trampoline instead of calisthenics. Yesterday I did calisthenics.
So let's talk about active recovery in between the next phase.
So after I've done, let's just say 21 days of that phase, I'm going to do some active rest days. That could be walking, that could be playing, that could be swimming. I'm actively resting. I'm not really in the gym, and if I am in the gym, it's going to be lightweight, but I'm not pushing it. And so that might be 2 to 3 days of that type thing, giving myself a little break, and then I go into the next one. And so I never did that before, where I took active rest, and it kind of lets your brain recover. Like, I'm supposed to rest today. And so getting a massage, do some restorative stretching, just ways to let the body recover.
Yeah, so the goal is not after this 3 months to say, well, I have elbow tendonitis.
Right.
The goal is to say, I'm going to push myself in a very focused period, take some active recovery, keep building up that ring. And remember, it's not a straight line. It's going to be up, down, but at the end, it's like the stock market. You hope that it's going to be.
Yeah, and again, you're really focused. And I always noticed too, because way back in the day, we didn't have a Whoop or heart rate variability, but I would always monitor my resting heart rate, and my resting heart rate got better over time versus started creeping up. When I was overtraining, because I was overtraining my first bodybuilding contests, I was exhausted, and my resting heart rate come up. I was sleeping poorly. So as I started doing more active recovery, then I slept better. My resting heart rate stayed low. So again, I gave my body enough time to recover. And I think people don't do that are the regular exercisers.
So then we go into 4 sets of 8. So now we're doing repetitions of 8, which are weight's going to increase a little bit. We're not going to be doing as long of repetitions. So this is going to be, to me, this tends to be my favorite space. It's just my body type or whatever.
Yeah. And the other thing too, when you're doing 4 sets of 8, now you have a baseline of like what you were doing with 13 reps, so you kind of know what weight is going to be where you're at. And even though you might be able to do 13 reps of really good form, then maybe you need to adjust the resistance for that or the speed or whatever you're doing. So that now you're starting to create a baseline.
And that just to mention on cardio. So for cardio, most of the time I'm going to be doing some type of interval type of stuff where I'm having some rest in there. But I also think through it. Some days I do want to go at just a slower clip.
Sure.
Some days I want to do like sprints, like hard.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I play basketball. Some days I do longer, shorter. So I'm thinking through that at the same time. But this is
so you're kind of mapping out your cardio too and say, okay, how much am I going to do today? And it's interesting. The other day I was at the Pier 66 in Fort Lauderdale, and I got on one of their like steppers, and you can measure your watts, which is a way to measure intensity. And I thought to myself, 150 watts on the step thing, it's hard. It's not crazy. So then I said, well, I'm going to take it up to 250 watts. It's painful. You get up there, and so you could do it, but then you're doing intervals, or you can bring it down to 75 watts, and I'm doing it like I'm sleeping. So it's nice to know what your limitations are, and you're aware of that versus just getting on a bike and you're reading there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't be doing that all the time if you want training. Activation.
If you want some change.
You want some change. You got to be a little uncomfortable.
So then we take some active rest out of that after 21 days or a month or 34 days, however you're looking at it. And then we start to go in what I consider probably the hardest phase, and it's 5x5. This is when you're going to be pushing. Now you're going to think about the rest in between the sets. This is going to be the one you're going to want the most amount of rest in between the sets. 3x13, you can kind of
I think that's what you and I both do. Like if I'm doing a chest and back routine, I'm doing a chest movement, and then I move into a back movement. Like I might do dumbbell chest presses, and then you're going to do pull-ups. It allows you that
so you're not going to be
time.
at the gym for 3 hours.
Yeah, you're not there for 3 hours versus back in the day, we're just
body part, weight,
squatting for 45 minutes by the nobody who has time for that, and then it's not really beneficial either in my opinion.
So 5x5, so we're doing 5 sets, 5 reps. This is where the weight goes,
and that gives you an opportunity to see what kind of your capacity is, and then when you come back to 3x13, then you realize, okay, this is what for example, let's just say you're doing dumbbell chest presses, and 3x13, you may be doing 50 pounds or 55 pounds or 60 pounds. But then maybe if you're doing 5x5, maybe you're doing 100 pounds, 5 reps. So it allows you that without getting injured.
So I'm going to pause everyone listening for now, and I want you to think about yourself. And you're either one of two. You're either somebody closer to doing 2 sets of 20 reps. So you're just really picking a movement, kind of just doing it.
Or 10 reps or 15
whatever.
reps or whatever. Right.
Yep. Or you're probably somebody that might be doing 8 sets of 3 reps because you're trying to just push the most amount of weight in the gym. What we're trying to show you here, this is a framework to give you that expansion. So this morning I saw a gentleman in the gym that was pushing extremely heavy weight. Specifically, he looks like he pushes extremely heavy weight.
Mm-hmm.
I would say his capacity is very limited to that specific form. If I got him on a basketball court, or if I said, hey, let's jog, it wouldn't go very well. Then I saw someone over doing, one exercise, 1 rep, one set, 20 reps, just going through all these different
they're
stations.
just doing a circuit.
And they look like they're just doing the circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they probably have a decent universal thing, but if I wanted them to push weight, it would be very challenging. So,
well, and I think let's pause there for a second. So we don't want to get people sideways. I want them just their movement. They're getting benefits, right? Yeah. Hey, they're just walking on the track for 10 minutes. You're getting benefits. You're doing some stretching. But as they progress and they have this little pocket of time where now we step back and say, okay, you have this much time. Let's start slowly building some more knowledge of how you can pivot on your own and now get the results you're looking for. Because if you're doing the 3 sets or 2 sets of 10 reps and you go through the circuit and you've been doing that for 5 years, I would get clients and go, let's just step back. What kind of warm up do you do? What kind of mobility exercise? What kind of balance are you doing? What kind of strength are you doing? I know what you're doing, but what if I could take that same amount of time and start expanding your knowledge in that? So, and then they were like, I'm in, because I want to get these results and I want to learn more, but I don't want to be in the gym all day or wherever I'm doing it, at home or whatever. So don't be afraid that you have to spend more time. You just have to slowly start learning a little bit more on how you can add some of these things into your world. And that's one of the reasons why we have the audiobook Rest, Eat, Move, or we have lots of videos on our website.
So after this 3-month time period, 89 days, what would happen if you followed this is at the end of there, you should feel and kind of be at a pretty high level. Now, I'm not training for anything specific. I don't have a marathon. I don't have a gold medal that I'm trying to win. But that's what periodization is by the time that you're done with this, you're actually peaking after that 5x5.
And this is really good for people that are chronic exercisers,
right?
Because you're kind of almost forcing them to recover more, which they're not doing. They just keep running or they keep doing whatever. They haven't really plugged in that. And then now they know that's part of the plan, and they have to trust the process that this is going to work. First time I did this, I was like nervous, like, am I really going to be? And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I feel amazing. I'm not injured. I look as good as I've ever looked. And so that was one of the reasons I was as sold. I'm like, okay, I'm all in. And then I'm going to teach this.
Well, and there's a lot of documentation around periodization, as many of the world records or Olympic gold medals are usually done after a setback or injury because of the forced recovery that had to take or found where the weaknesses were. It's usually not coming off of PR world record. It's usually
right.
PR, injury, setback, more capacity than I ever thought.
And you see that in professional skiing more and more now. There's more and more planned recovery in.
Well, the baseball's going right now. They don't let anyone go over what pitch count.
90 is, they're down getting.
Yeah, so the recovery is a big deal. I think in a strength training routine, for me, back to reality, for the last 5 years, I've been doing a little bit of this, but not very intentional.
Right.
I've been doing three sets, 10 reps. Maybe I'll go to 13 and 3 here and there. But right now I'm activating. I'm in the 3x13. I'm going and actually creating the intensity and intentionality because I have the plan.
And then, like you said, this is all in the book or in the audio as we go into the weeds a little bit more about this, because it is, to me, again, it's intentional. You don't always feel like you always have to do it, but it does give you some real focus, and it's kind of exciting as you're traveling down this path.
It gives you some framework. Again, everyone's in a different spot, likes different things, does different things. But one of the mistakes we see a lot is people jumping from new thing to new thing. Now, if you like Orange Theory and these different programs, that's maybe a time and a place that works for you. But then we also see the everyday worker outer, and they're getting benefits, but for the same amount of time, they could get exponential benefits with not a ton of.
What we used to do, and we still will do this, but training the trainers, we'd sit down as a team, and we'd talk about a row. Let's say for a back exercise, and you're doing a standing row, a seated row, a one-arm row. There's 100 different ways to do it. And now you're like, wow, that's fun. So now I have all this to pick off the menu. It's still a row. And then from there, I'm going to do a lat pull down. Okay, a lat pull down is not just a lat pull down. I can change my hand position, width of my hand position, speed of the movement. The list goes on and on. So now it's not just a lat pull down anymore. I have all this ways to do it. And that makes it exciting for people. And they're like, wow, I never thought of that. And then they're kind of watching people and they're like, wow, people do the same thing over and over. I go, yeah, they don't have to. So the body wants to adapt, and you have to give it that opportunity in a timely manner.
Eccentric, concentric, isometric. There's a lot of different ways. You want to really put someone to their test that's exercising. You put them into some type of isometric hold, and they're like, wait, but I can do the heavy. I'm just having you sit right here with your body weight.
Yeah. So I'm just sitting there doing my body weight, and you're like, okay,
my legs are shaking.
My legs are just smoked. And we've done this when we're skiing, you hold that tuck position or anything like the time, you're like, holy cow, my legs are smoked.
Yeah. So again, where I'm at right now, I'm in the activation focus phase. I want to kind of talk through how I think about it. Hopefully give you some ideas and framework. The reality though is some days in the 89-day training program, I'm probably going to make a mistake. I'm not going to do exactly what I have on this piece of paper. And that to me is the art, the science, the intent. That's real life. Before I got on, I've been wearing the Whoop and kind of getting some data as I wanted to share more of that. Yesterday I went to bed. I was in bed at a good time. I felt good. I felt good all day. And for whatever reason, I think I missed my sleep window. And
as we get wrapping up here, but it's no different than food. Like people say all the time, when you're competing, I go, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. You're not it doesn't have to be so rigid. Now, the other night, they had a turn down service at this hotel. It was Pier 66. It was great. But the gal knocks on the door and she said, would you like, turn down service? I said, no. But she said, would you like these chocolates that we have?
Heck yeah.
And I go, heck yeah. So I was talking to her and I said, are these? She goes, oh my gosh, these are the best chocolates you've ever eaten. So I wasn't planning on eating chocolate at 8:00 at night, but I ate these chocolates. They were incredible. So I think that's what we want. We don't want to be so rigid. We're trying to create a flow. We're trying to get a lifestyle you can repeat and love. And I think sometimes we just have to let our hair down and enjoy.
Yeah, and we like to share this because there are a lot of, I think, very scientific podcasts and information that I think goes into the weeds in a different direction of too much science. At the end of the day, the reason that we don't recommend a behind the neck squat is because it's not good for you. But scientifically speaking, the data is going to be on a squat. It's very measurable.
Yeah, but why would you want to compress your lower?
So to me, I think there's we gave you some
I've done
science.
a squat. You watch people. I remember watching Fred Hatfield. Walt and I went to Chicago and listened to him. He's got a PhD and was the first guy to ever squat 1,000 pounds. And I couldn't wait for him to, come up and talk. And the guy was a genius, but all I had to do was see him walk.
Right.
And he wasn't that much older than me. And I'm like, the guy could barely walk. I'm like, that was my aha moment right there. So I think that's the thing there's a lot of science out there, but as Dr. Phil always, the proof's in you consuming the pudding, not just making the pudding.
And that's why the part I'm at right now is, again, external stimulation. How much weight am I doing? How do I look? How much I'm sweating? What's my Whoop say? It's all external. We got to learn this internal and say, well, how is my ankle feeling today?
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone listening, I want you to kind of stretch yourself here. Think through, are you more of the 5x5? Or are you more of the 3x13? And do you have the capacity or range or curiosity to expand? That's the journey I'm going on. It's not just about getting to a certain weight or certain look. It's about being my best. And you got to do that by going inward and stretching yourself.
And you learn a lot along the way about you when you're going through this.
Right. And you protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So as we wrap up, I learned something new, the 4 Fs. Can you repeat that? Because I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and again, Todd Yale taught me this. I mean, we came up with a lot of things, but he came up with this, but focus, form, feel, fatigue. So think about that. I'm going to get into a movement. I'm going to focus. And then I'm going to feel the movement while I'm doing it. I don't have anything blaring in my ear. I'm feeling it. And then from there, I start I focus. My form is perfect. I'm feeling the muscle, and then I'm fatiguing it. And when I'm fatigued, I kind of, I'm starting to lose my form, and I'm kind of losing my focus. Then I'm done with the movement. So fatigue is the last one.
Got it.
Focus, form, feel, fatigue.
Not just fatigue.
And that's what you see. Just put on the weight. I just fatigue. Form's collapsed. Same. Not even paying attention to how I feel. My back's messed up.
Never focused. Never had form. Never felt it. But
step in the arena. Focus. What's my technique or form look like? What does it feel like? How are the muscles feeling when I contract them? And then how am I fatiguing? And when you fatigue, then I stop the movement.
And that's why you talk about engaging your breath.
Correct.
Raising your chest, pulling your scapula together.
And that's the whole nervous system.
Yeah.
Nervous system awareness. And again, I can't do that with stuff blaring in my head. Now, some days I like stuff blaring in my head. I'm not so doing the focus form feel fatigue. But again, it's a whole nother level to kind of engage. And like you said from the beginning, it's coming inward.
All right, so I'm going to go check your bag see if you have any more of those extra chocolates. We'll see you again next time as we follow this journey. And if you need anything, info@ontargetliving.com. We'll see you again next time.